The day the world came to Pakistan Spring arrived in Islamabad the way it always does, unhurried, certain of itself, indifferent to the urgency of men, by Iqbal Latif. The Lombardy poplars stood tall along the wide boulevards, their silver-green leaves catching the morning light like sequins on a grand dress. The Margalla Hills, blue and ancient in the distance, watched over the city with the patient authority of things that have seen everything and been surprised by nothing. Roses were opening in the gardens of the diplomatic quarter. The air carried that particular fragrance, cool, mineral, alive, that belongs only to this city, only to this season, only to this meeting point of mountain and plain where Pakistan built its capital and dared the world to take it seriously. The world, for a very long time, did not. And now the world was coming. April 10th, 2026, the Islamabad talks. Say those words and feel the weight of them. Not the weight of a summit. Summits are routine, summits are theatrical, summits are what powers hold when they want photographs. The weight of something rarer. The weight of a reckoning, the weight of a world that had been, 3 days ago, 72 hours from a catastrophe that would have consumed a civilization, deciding instead to sit down at a table in a city it had spent decades ignoring. They said nobody would come. India said it, loudly, confidently, with the particular certainty of a nation whose cinema had told it the story so many times that it had mistaken the film for the geography. Pakistan is a security risk. Pakistan is unstable. Pakistan is a place where serious people do not go to make serious peace. The Afghan lobby whispered it. The old enemies circulated it. The propagandists worked their channels. Nobody will come to Islamabad. And then they came. Because the world had just witnessed something that propaganda cannot explain away and contempt cannot dismiss. 3 days ago, the planet stood at the edge of an abyss so deep that the people who understood it, truly understood it, not as a metaphor, but as a physical sequence of events, could not sleep. Tehran had 18 million people, 90 million Iranians. The Gulf stretched below, its oil infrastructure exposed, its cities within range of weapons that had no restraint left in them. The Strait of Hormuz, 34 kilometers of water through which 20% of the world's oil flows every single day, had become the most important geography on Earth, and it was closed. 5 billion poor people on this planet were feeling it in their pockets. 3 billion Asians were absorbing it in their daily arithmetic of survival. The Filipino with his fuel, the Bangladeshi with his factory margin, the Indian household with its cooking gas, the Japanese manufacturer staring at supply chains that had ceased to function. None of them had voted for this. None of them had chosen it. All of them were paying for it. And the blitz was coming. 4 hours. That was the window. 4 hours of the most concentrated American military force applied to Iranian civilian infrastructure, power grids, water systems, desalination plants, the invisible architecture of modern life, and Iran would be sent, in Trump's own words, to the Stone Ages. A civilization older than Rome, older than most things that call themselves ancient, reduced in 4 hours to darkness and thirst. That was the plan. That was the countdown. And then Islamabad moved, not loudly, not with declarations or press releases or the manufactured drama of crisis diplomacy. Islamabad moved the way it has always moved when it has moved at all, quietly, through channels, through relationships built across decades of patient, unglamorous, unremarked presence in every room that mattered. Pakistan had something that no other country on earth possessed at that moment. It could speak to everyone. To Washington, through the structural relationship with CENTCOM that has existed since 1979, through the lunch in the White House Cabinet Room where Trump had looked at Field Marshal Asim Munir and said, in plain American English, "They know Iran very well, better than most," and meant it. To Tehran, through 900 kilometers of shared border, through Hafez, read in Lahore as naturally as in Shiraz, through the civilizational memory that runs beneath political hostility like an underground river that politics cannot permanently dam. To Riyadh, through the relationship that Munir had built with Mohammed bin Salman across years of direct, honest, working conversation. 3 hours in Riyadh. The line held. Do not strike Saudi Arabia. The line held because Pakistan asked, and because Pakistan's ask carried the weight of demonstrated credibility. To Beijing, through the partnership that had been deepened across decades, so that when the final wall would not fall and Tehran's door seemed permanently closed, China could walk through the one door that only China could open and say, in the language of economic survival, that Iran cannot refuse, enough. Pakistan had all of these conversations simultaneously, without betraying any of them, without being expelled from any room, without losing the trust of any party. This is not a coincidence. This is what 78 years of fire produces. Because let us speak honestly about what Pakistan has endured to arrive at this moment. Since 1979, this country has absorbed everything that the region's instability could throw at it. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, Pakistan became the frontline state, the channel for resistance, the host of 3 million refugees, the country that held the western flank of everything that mattered. The blowback from that war, the Kalashnikov culture, the heroin roots, the radicalization that seeped across the border and into Pakistani society itself, the TTP, the BLA, the internal convulsions of a democracy that struggled, failed, recovered, struggled again. PTI, TLP, the political storms that would have capsized any state with less structural resilience. Through all of it, Pakistan burned. And through all of it, Pakistan held. Not elegantly, not without cost, not without the kind of wounds that take generations to heal. But it held. It produced institutions that survived governments. It produced an army that fought continuously in the tribal areas, on the Durand Line, in Waziristan and Bajour and Swat, and emerged not broken, but hardened, not corrupted by war, but educated by it. And then, at the moment the world needed someone who had been through fire, Pakistan was there, because only those who have been through fire know how to stand at the edge of it. India watched all of this from outside. India, which had made Dhurandhar that magnificent, expensive, self-congratulatory fantasy of Pakistani collapse, manufactured in Bollywood and sold to 1.4 billion people at 2,000 crore rupees apiece. Dhurandhar 1, Dhurandhar 2. Pakistan as the villain, the punchline, the caricature, the country that exists only to confirm Indian superiority. India, whose external affairs minister had called Pakistan a dalal, a broker, a middleman, something lesser, something without dignity. India, which was not in the room on April 7th, which had no channel into Tehran, which had no weight in Riyadh that the moment required, which could not, when the world needed it most, offer anything except the absence of a relationship. And now, India's propagandists had said nobody would come to Islamabad, but they are coming, because the Dalal saved the world, because the broker Zort Dalal was the only one that everyone trusted, because the caricature turned out to be the indispensable nation. Half of India's thinking class is in shock. I hear it. I know it. The question that runs beneath everything they say, where do we fit now? How did we get here? How did the country we reduced to entertainment just do what we could not do? That shock is honest. That shock is the beginning of something better if India is wise enough to follow it. And so they come to Islamabad, to a city that does not impose itself, that does not carry the theatrical weight of empire, that sits quietly at the edge of its mountains as if it has always known that patience is the longest form of power. The Lombardy poplars are still standing, the Margalla hills are still watching, the roses are still opening in the diplomatic gardens. Spring in Islamabad does not know what history is happening beneath it. It simply continues, fragrant, unhurried, indifferent to the urgency of men. But the men are coming. To sign what was agreed in the fire of April 7th, to formalize what Pakistan made possible in the hours when the world was counting down to catastrophe, to sit at a table in a city nobody was watching and write, in the careful language of diplomacy, the end of a conflict that has run since 1979. 47 years, 2 generations, ending, if it ends, not in Washington, not in Geneva, not in the grand capitals that history usually chooses for its theater, in Islamabad. This is what 78 years of fire produces. Not a country that is safe or comfortable or free of its contradictions, but a country that is ready. Ready for the moment that requires exactly what it has: the geography, the relationships, the civilizational depth, the hardened pragmatism of a state that has survived everything thrown at it and emerged still standing, still functional, still trusted. Pakistan is not at the periphery of this New World order. It is at the center of the pivot. And the pivot, if history is honest, if it is written clearly, if it is stripped of the comfortable mythologies that nations prefer to the truth, began here. In a quiet city no one was watching, in a spring that smelled of roses and possibility, in Islamabad,